Hello and welcome to the new episode of the All Walks of Life podcast. In today's episode, I sat down with Twinkle Karia. She's a physiotherapist based out of Mumbai and she's doing some work, very interesting work, I should say, in the musculoskeletal injury space and also has done some papers in the correlation between anthropometric measures and how it relates to physical activity at a very young age. It was a pleasure speaking to her and we broke down some of the issues that we face with aspects such as obesity in today's day and age, how elderly people can actually use assistance equipments in their homes to go about their lives. In general, it was a great conversation that I had with her and I would really recommend you guys to tune in. Just before we start the episode, I would really recommend that you listen to us on all the media platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube, and we would really appreciate any support coming our way. Dr. Twinkle Khanna, welcome to the All Walks of Life podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on, ma'am.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. How have you been keeping yourself busy during the quarantine period then?
So, I've been expanding and brushing up my knowledge, learning
Right.
I'm learning language, trying to at least learn French, and I'm learning cooking, which I don't think I would have ever done otherwise. So
Yeah. No, I mean that's pretty common. Some of my friends and the people I've had on the podcast as well, they speak about how they're using this time very well in honing skills such as cooking or reading up on their material and things like that. Yeah, so that's a great thing. So just before we start with this conversation, can you give a debrief about yourself maybe, and also just explain the role of a physiotherapist?
So I'm a physiotherapist. Actually, I'm currently doing my master's in musculoskeletal and sports injuries, and now this is my last year. And the role of physiotherapist, I feel, is mainly physiotherapy is a treatment. Like how you have homeopathy and allopathy kind of treatment. Physiotherapy is also kind of treatment, but we mostly work without medication, without drug. So
Right.
physiotherapists are specialists of muscles. So according to me, the main function of a physiotherapist is to create awareness, to let your body, let your body talk. So you knowing what the problem of the patient is without actually going through surgery, any kind of injuries, you name it, and I can tell you a physiotherapist can help you. Be it related to your lungs, heart, your brain, or any muscle, any joints, I'm sure a physiotherapist can help you. So we try, there are different kinds. We try that we not let the person go through a surgery. So we try and help them that. So we try and help them that, if possible, that the person doesn't have to go through any surgery, and the treatment is done without the surgery, and the person is just fit. It's for your own betterment. There are various fields in physiotherapy. So it's like musculoskeletal, like you have back pain, knee pain, any fractures, those kind of things. Sports are basically related to sports. Then neuro physiotherapists are the ones who do their specialization in any conditions related to brain and spinal cord. So you can say a person has paralysis, stroke, or a child is born with any abnormality like cerebral palsy or any spine injury during an accident, trauma. So and cardiopulmonary, that physiotherapist is specialization who does their specialization in any problems related to heart, lung, or circulatory, like a heart attack or pneumonia. So a physiotherapist can help you even in those conditions. So it's basically just making your life better.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty interesting because and there are some myths I'd say regarding the whole injury prevention spectrum in India. So whenever I speak to my parents or even my relatives, they aren't very enthusiastic when I tell them or promote the idea of being or having some sort of exercise in their daily routine. It could just be a half an hour walk if they are elderly people, or it could just be for them going for a run or lifting some weights in the gym. But they feel that I'm totally fit right now. I mean, I don't have any diseases as such. So they don't understand the whole concept of, okay, if only when I get, let's say, a disease or when I break a bone, will I visit the doctor? Will I implement these strategies? So can you talk a little bit about, let's say, how physiotherapists can play a really massive role in injury prevention? Because I've been studying this at university as well, and I've been looking at some of the how strength and conditioning is very beneficial for, let's say, children in the young age. And I know you've done work in this spectrum as well. So just can you talk a little bit about how much of an importance exercise plays in our daily lives?
Yeah, so I've done this one research. So this was mainly for creating awareness only in young population. Like parents are like, like how you said, the parents are like, the child is okay. Why does he need to
Hmm.
exercise? Let him do. But there have been so many studies which say the people like who have been working out since they are teenage have so many less problems when they grow old. Like when you
Yeah.
grow up, the chances of injuries, musculoskeletal pain, back pain, knee pain, or even the prevalence of having a knee replacement or any such kind
Yeah.
of thing has been less in those people who have been working out in their teenage. I understand, like earlier, it was a myth, like saying people used to be like, "No, I need to work out" and all that. But recently, I've been studying this physiotherapy since last 5 years, and in 5 years also I've seen a lot of progress. Like I
Hmm.
work at clinic and hospital and all, so I know that people now come to you when like even to prevent injuries. So many of them now come to us saying that I want to start doing this. So first, can we get trained so that there is no injury, so that we have to stop doing. So that's a very good thing I feel. Like people are really now getting aware. So that's why I feel that that the awareness about physiotherapy is like really important. And now recently it is coming up, which I'm sure I've myself observed in the last 5 years. But like people really need to understand that prevention is much better than cure.
Yeah. No, because yeah, that's totally, I agree with that, and I've seen this in my lifetime as well. I see this in the general public, how people are more they're more welcoming of, let's say, exercise or expertise in let's say for a sports scientist or a physiotherapist and among these fields. So where do you think that this awareness is stemming from? Do you think it's the media? Do you think it's just more people? How do you think that the awareness is stemming to these age groups?
Like how I feel that media is, but so many of them are even taking physiotherapy as a profession. Earlier, you see that there was not much. Like even there has been barriers between the surgeons and physiotherapists also. Earlier, even
Hmm.
the surgeons feel that like there's no need of, even there are right now also there are some who feel that there's no need of physiotherapy. We do a, like you have a replacement and then you are like completely fine. But like it's so much important. Like even the surgeons now, even they are realizing the importance. They have done the researches. Physiotherapists have given them proof saying that like uh, how important it is to train your muscle. And most important, like the surgeons still feel that you get the surgery and then you send the patient to a physiotherapist. But I would say if you send the person before the surgery, or even if you need the surgery, I'm sure like you need the surgery. Okay, the doctor has said that like even after any kind of injury, even a sports person has had a ligament tear or whatever, any extreme thing that it can be only be treated by a surgery. You first send the person for a few weeks to a physiotherapist, get the muscle strengthened, and then go through a surgery. I'm sure that the
Hmm.
results of surgery are also so much better, and the recovery back to sports. We have different phases. The phase where you return to sport is much earlier than the ones who have not worked out or done the prehab. So recently, the
Yeah.
rehab is also coming up so well in sports industries that everybody is like getting up, like knowing about it through doctors, through each other, like through physiotherapists. Even so many physios, there are so many, or like now even doctors or even the surgeons and all, they are getting aware. There is a good communication between the physios and the surgeons about the
Hmm.
importance, the awareness. And they are creating good awareness, and now it's just becoming a lot better now. So many of us even come to prehab, and it's majorly observed that the return to sports is just fab and very.
No, because I feel that's really important. Like the things you touched upon, that let's say if you may have had a drastic injury or something, and you're suggested to go to, let's say, a surgeon, but let's say you say that you can take a precautionary measure of, let's say, visiting a physiotherapist, and he or she will implement, let's say, a prehab on you for a certain amount of weeks, let's say 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And sometimes, I'm not saying always that's the case, but sometimes what we see is through methods like cryotherapy and the other various things that physiotherapists implement, that many of the times these people actually do not they recover totally from the injury, or have very few things that's left, let's say, that the surgeon has to then deal with. So I think that's a really important thing, don't you think, for, let's say, going into rehab or rehab even.
So I feel that many of them have even this conception that when you go to a physiotherapist, all they want is, some machine attached to them or something. Then only I feel, like it's their psychological also that, if I've been given this current or this, this ultrasound or whatever method, then only I'm going to feel better. But I really would want to emphasize on, put an emphasis on this, is that with any modality that you take, exercise is most important. Like, you come for modality and be like, no, I'll do exercises at home, or I don't need to do exercise, you only give me the modality or whatever. That's the worst thing. Anything with exercise is beneficial, but anything without exercise is just going to get you back to where you were. The strengthening,
Yeah.
stretching, and the balance of all the exercises is just very much important. And also, I would like, put that everybody feels that, you need a reference to go to a physiotherapist. It's the biggest myth. But like, you can go to a physiotherapist on your own without any reference. Like, physiotherapists are, like, they are capable of evaluating you, diagnosing you, and treating you, and like independently without any referral or anybody having to ask you to go through them. They can be the first line of person who can approach you with any kind of.
Yeah,
That's the one.
I feel, yeah, I feel when touching upon the whole concept of referencing, that you need to go and look at this specialist or thing or something like that. I feel that sometimes people don't come directly, let's say, to a physiotherapist or even other fields like psychology or something, because they aren't well versed with it. Everyone's well versed with, let's say, a doctor who is specialized in these fields, but up and coming fields like physiotherapy and psychology, people aren't so well versed of. So they sometimes just they sometimes, I don't know how to put it, they sometimes don't put as much attention as they would to, let's say, another drastic injury. But like, from what I've seen is, let's say, the things you talked about, how it's very important for us to have exercise in our daily lives. It's essential almost. So, and we can track this as the work you've done as well, through the ages. So if someone starts exercising or working out from a very young age, he or she is almost certain to have very few injuries, if not any injuries, when he or she grows up. So I think that's where it kind of stems from. And the more and more people focus on, let's say, strength and conditioning, physiotherapy, this will come sooner. So you've done some work regarding the whole home safety and homebound adults, and in the Indian spectrum. So could you just walk us through your study and your observations in that?
So, like, I was like, this is my undergraduate project. So, I had done it on an 100 individual. I had done a home assessment to identify the risk of falls in there. Like, because of the external and environmental factors, how much is the possibility of falls and injuries, and like, what could be done to prevent them. So I had
Yeah.
prepared my own, and I had gone to 100 houses and done the assessment. So I found out that in India, like, this study which I have done was never done in India. So this population, like, majority of them didn't have any, like, suppose I'd say, like, in the bathroom when you go and sit on the toilet seat, it is very difficult for an elderly to sit and then get up.
Hmm.
The squat is so difficult. So just take a hand bar, like a bar beside you, and that is, much more difficult, or like much more easier for them to get up, sit down. Like, their lifestyle would be so much more better. Their quality of life would improve a lot. Hardly, I think there were like 5,000-6,000 in which I had found this kind of thing in Mumbai, and hardly, like, nobody was aware. So many of them even needed a like a stick or a walker for them to make their life better, to improve their quality of life. But people in India have this mindset, especially older. They know that, I'm better. I don't need it. No, I can walk. I don't need that. Walk slow. Or then, if they are like, they feel odd to get out with such walkers and always stop going out and suddenly they become bedridden. Such small things like this, like I think that, physiotherapists are here or, even occupational therapists do that, but physiotherapists are here and this project mainly was to focus on that, you don't need to stop doing things. You need to be aware that there are hundreds of ways where you can make your living better and less painful. People who had, they were similarly, who didn't use this, they didn't have all these things around them to make their life better. They had, there were different factors like, safety, about being scared to go out, the frequency of calls. So that had been so much more in those people who didn't use the equipment or the assistance device that they needed actually. So I'm at least sure that I'm made aware to those like 100 houses that that they can make their life better. And the main thing was that to create more awareness about the like how you could make your own life better and easier and improve your quality of life.
No, so that's very interesting that you talk about how, like, it's in like the 100 houses you looked at, most of them really needed some kind of assistance when doing their daily needs of maybe visiting the bathroom or going to the kitchen or the dining place. So, and you talked about, let's say, installing a sort of a rod in the bathroom to help the elderly get up and use the bathroom services. But so, what are the other kinds of equipment that you suggested, maybe, or you looked at that you could install in other parts of the house, maybe in the bedroom space or in the diner? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So in the bedroom, one major is the height of your bed. So if it's
Right.
too low, it again becomes difficult for the elderly to sit down because they have to squat again. If it's too high, then it's again difficult for them. It has to be appropriate height. And also, so many of them, when they go to sleep at night, they fall down. It would be so much better if
Mm-hmm.
they have a thing or a pull-up thing at the side of their bed so that like the incidence of them falling down is much lesser. Also, there were so many of them who stayed alone in the house. So, the alarm system for them, like it's very common in abroad, but in India it's not very common. So even those basic things that in kitchen, like our kitchen height, the height of the platform is also not appropriate. If it's too high, then your shoulders will get tightened up. If it's too low, then your back is going to hurt. So all that basic things, and then also like we have drawers, like high drawers in the kitchen. We used to have drawers which are actually like at the shoulder level to the elderly population. It's like much more difficult than the users to will climb on it. Then again, there are more chances of losing their balance and falling down. And also the kind of the sitting at home, also assistance devices properly they can really control like that the myth that they have that like no like they don't want to accept, many of them don't want to accept that I've become old, I cannot go out meet my friends with a walker or a stick. I'll walk slowly, but I just don't want to use it. So that is like it is making your life easier because on our roads are like, I'm sure that that people just keep falling. So like
Right.
it's unsafe. So like at least you have something like to increase your balance or to increase your ways of support to make your balance better. And it's like the really really need that acceptance in them also that it's okay and that it's just good for their better. Also in the society, I would say that people stop climbing stairs if there's a problem with the lift. And then for disabled also, like they really need to have a proper space, proper rug, no slippery floors, then proper handles when they need to like everybody's building, even though they have lift, at least sometimes they have one or two stairs to climb or enter their building or society. So at least a proper handle or a support like they need to even when to climb those two stairs that they need. So it's very important that entire even the society and everybody like really start thinking of it and start making it not only disabled friendly but also elderly friendly.
Right. No, something I'd like to unpick here is, so you suggest that, let's say, we install assessment assistance equipment around the house and the places they visit, let's say the garden or when they're going for a walk. So my question here is that I've often seen that when people start using these assistance equipments, let's say a walker or let's say some kind of rod when they're trying to pick themselves up, their body over time, if they keep using it, it becomes let's say accustomed to that particular equipment. The body feels that that's an extension of the body and it will always keep on requiring that for the rest of the life. So, is it beneficial or healthy for us to say that, okay, you can implement this for your benefit for, let's say, a month, and then let's see how your body is feeling. And then gradually, let's say the children in the house can start removing those assistance equipments to make the elderly more accustomed to the gender life that they can live again. Is that, do you understand where I'm getting at, or do you think that at when you're at such an age, then you should live with a particular assistance?
So, like our body was just is a very valid point for the ones who are born to injury and are not beyond 60 or 70 years of age. Like suppose if a 40 or 50 or a 50-year-old one has had an injury or something, and if I'm asking them to use a walker,
Yeah.
I think after you make sure must that they are off because they are functioning. But like as you grow old, as you age, your many like your balance, your section, and like it's very common that it's going to like become a little less efficient. So like when you get this, you make sure that you have limited assistance that provides the maximum outcome in such elderly population. But take off them from those things, which is a very good idea because even though they may feel like confident and all that, but ultimately that their balance and physical health in this age does get affected. So it's
Mm.
like unlimited assistance, but it provides a maximum outcome.
Yeah, no, like I've seen this in my with my grandparents as well. So, like I'd say my grandfather has a really good routine. So he goes out for a walk every morning, and he returns back and things like that. And he's been doing that for the majority of his life, and he's in a relatively good shape and health. So, but then again, he understands his limitations because of his age. So he would never, or he would very rarely push himself. So he wouldn't say that I would do an extra mile today when I'm walking, or with my other with or with someone else that I've observed that they generally don't want to push themselves because they understand the limitations of their body. So they understand that this is how much my body can sustain. So it's unwise for me to, let's say, try to walk another mile just because I'm feeling like it today. So do you think that more and more people are getting accustomed to being more conservative and being a little more careful with their bodies in that sense?
So that's why that comes the time that you need somebody to guide them correctly. So I think that if he wants to walk one extra mile today, it means that he can, he should. But if ultimately after walking 5 steps he feels like he cannot, you should just take a break. Take a break and
Right.
then again what you're doing. So I feel that's why the main, even I feel like the main objective of physiotherapist always is a proper patient education. Like it's
Hmm.
very important the patient understand what they can do, how they should move forward. Now, suppose if I have a patient who wants to, like pick up something from overhead, but right now I feel that that's not something good for him. I have to find an alternative which the patient is satisfied, and even though I feel that the patient shouldn't be doing it, I have to at least make sure that the patient is satisfied in some other manner, and we shouldn't, or he shouldn't feel that I'm stopped from doing something. It is very important to make the patient understand, make the surrounding more comfortable for the patient, especially for the elderly, and just educate them, tell them that even though you feel that this is like you cannot do more than this, even if you feel that you cannot do more than this, but the patient wants to, you have to find an alternative to it. So I feel that in this case, the patient should be asked to take more rest and then continue doing whatever he is doing.
Right. Well, that's pretty interesting. How much do you feel that, as you mentioned, like how much do you feel that I understand you're a physiotherapist, but how much do you think that the psychology plays a role in this? So when I mentioned that he wants to walk an extra mile today, let's say my grandfather, but his body generally is accustomed to walking 2 miles, so why should he walk the third mile? But let's say if you put it in a way, say that you can try walking 5 steps, 10 steps, and then if you feel comfortable, then you can walk more, or then you can take a rest. So do you think that that provides a sort of mental boost to the athlete or to the individual, in a sense that, okay, that's just a small step. If I do that, then maybe it'll be easier for me to take the next step. So how much of a role does psychology play in, let's say, in this part?
Psychology plays a very important role in all of the cases, like in all ages, in all patients. So like there have been patients like they have been so sure they come up with the mindset that I cannot just do it. Even though like if I'm asking them to lift up their hand up, they tell me they cannot do it. But if I give them an object overhead to do it, they just feel like they cannot do it. So it's very important to like assurance the patient education. That's why I say that it's so important that like you have to make sure that you find your way around the patient's needs. Even if the patient says that he cannot do it, but you see that there is a capability and the patient is actually doing it, you have to find a way around it and make sure the patient achieves what he or she can. Like psychology, like most important according to me, it's not very good at it, but I really feel like my all the patients that I've seen, psychology plays a very important.
No, because I can draw upon some personal experience as well. So recently, I'd say 3 or 4 months back, I had a lateral ligament tear. So I everted my ankle while playing tennis. So, and I was in massive pain, and I was on, or what do you call that, the leg strap that they give us. And I was with that for a couple of months, and then even after I'd removed that and I was on, like, let's say, just a patch. Um, for the first week without the stretcher, I was feeling a little uncomfortable with it. But the more and more I started to use it and just didn't think about it as such, I didn't really get the pain. But once I would just think about, oh, I shouldn't do that, I shouldn't make that kind of a movement with my leg, the pain would come back. It's quite, I don't know, it's quite odd to speak about it in that sense, but I generally felt that way. And I'd spoken to some other people who had, let's say, injuries in their wrist or injuries in their shoulder, who said that when they made it accustomed in their part of life, it wasn't such as much of a pain. But when they thought about it for a moment, the pain started to appear again. So I think that plays very much into the whole psychology thing you're talking about.
Such cases, we even give the patient the proprioception. So like proprioception is, you keep your hand or leg like feeling different kind of surfaces. So like as you said of your ankle injury.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we have stages of treatment also. We go through a rehabilitation, which ultimately our step is even proprioception training. So that's why this feeling of like being unsure that you might fall or you might have pain, feeling scared that if I walk on a stone, like if I do climbing or something that I'm going to get pain again. We make sure like that all that training is already given to you in the clinic, in the rehabilitation, so that when you actually face it, you're just more confident about it. So
Right.
I would suggest you that you do a proprioception training so that you didn't feel scared of that pain.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I've fully recovered from that, or at least I'd like to think so. But it's very interesting. You touched upon this aspect of, let's say, walking on uneven surfaces or walking on surfaces that our bodies aren't generally accustomed to. So when you have patients who come to you, let's say of an elderly age, are there specific shoes that you recommend to these elderly people? Because let's say I can look at this in my grandparents' situation. So they completely do not wear leather shoes anymore. Even if they're in a formal setting, they will prefer to wear, let's say, running shoes or shoes that make them feel comfortable. So how much do you feel like equipment such as shoes or other sorts of these equipment really play a role in healing, let's say, an injured part of your body, or just making your life easier when walking or going about life?
So like when you have had an injury which is accustomed to sport, then I would say that healing may or may not be affected. But otherwise, footwear in the process of healing is not a major thing. But majorly, it's like for your own comfort. Like especially when you said about elderly population, very comfortable footwear is most important. Like, now, like I wouldn't suggest my grandmother to wear even slightest of heels and go out because the roads are so uneven outside. Like even at home, if she wants to wear, I'm sure she will. But if she wants to wear, that was still okay. But like going on the road because of the uneven surfaces and all, it becomes very difficult for them to balance themselves. So that's why sports shoes are normally suggested, and comfort is seen more than the looks overall because like the roads and surfaces which you actually go through every day when you get out shoes with a proper sole. Like a proper sole, I would say, like something not too thick and not too hard, which is comfortable for the patient. And like unless you have an something, then you wear a different kind of insole, like which gives a like arch to your foot, a proper arch, so that you don't get heel or foot pain. And if you have flat feet or something, but in a normal population, just a comfortable shoe.
No, I mean, this is something I've been thinking about in relation to shoes and like how footwear works. Is that do you think that it's actually true that let's say when we look at sneakers or when we look at leather shoes, and if let's say in a more formal or corporate setting when people have to wear more leather shoes or more formal shoes, their feet get intertwined in one particular way because of wearing that shoe for long periods of time over years upon years, or let's say for an athlete who's constantly keeping running shoes or performance shoes, it becomes more spread out. Do you think there is enough literature to support that, or do you think that's just few cases that we observe?
So, like it's a very controversial thing about if it does, like the type of footwear gives a particular shape to it. But I feel that any kind of like if you're wearing something one kind of suppose like a leather shoe, how you said, the person is wearing that most of the days in his like he wore that for over a period of years continuously. It's very natural that he have the tendency to keep like all the fingers of the toes together. Like that's
Hmm.
how it comes to the heel is. So otherwise, there's not very much evidence that supports this. It's a very controversial thing, but I personally think that it's a very common thing to happen.
Yeah. No, I mean, this, I've been interested on this because I'm not sure if you've heard about this controversy. So, Nike recently released like a pair of running shoes. I think it was called the Vapor Fly Kit or one of those running shoes basically. And it was put towards the marathon. And the athlete who was basically sponsored and was wearing those running shoes beat all the world records when it comes to marathon running, and then that particular shoe was banned from any international running competitions. So that's when like my whole like this whole thought of how much does apparel really help us achieve what we can achieve as human beings.
So I think that while doing anything, like how we dress up, if you're going to party, you're going to dress up differently. If you're going to go to a funeral or a marriage, you're going to dress up differently. So there's different kind of footwear beneficial for different kind of events that you're going to definitely. So when
Right.
running, you can't wear shoes and run. So for running, like if you wear a heavy shoe, then your even though your training is amazing, but your footwear is like very heavy, then it will definitely affect your performance. Shoes does
Hmm.
play a important role, but like I wouldn't say just the shoes that we choose for very good.
Right. No, Twinkle ma'am, so I want to talk to you about your the other piece which we touched upon briefly, which was about the correlation between physical activity and anthropometric measurement. So, for a layman, anthropometric, if you could just explain what anthropometric first of all means, and then maybe we can touch upon the paper.
So anthropometric measures are those which include your body measurements like BMI. Everybody would know about body mass index.
Yeah.
So BMI, then your waist circumference. So there is a different, so like two types of obesity, or you could say, so like apple and pear kind of obesity, which leads to different kind of problems. Like if you have your tummy more than your buttocks, or somebody has your buttocks and thigh
Hmm.
area more, which leads to different kind of illnesses, like more prone to those cases. So anthropometric measures which I had taken was body mass index, waist circumference, and I had measured the body fat percentage of the individual. So I had taken these parameters, and I had taken a questionnaire to evaluate their physical activity, like normal physical activity that an individual did. So I correlated them and taken the measures of all of them, correlated them, and then I found out that physical activity was directly correlated to body mass index. So like the more your physical activity, the lesser is your BMI, which is healthier. Okay,
Hmm.
higher BMI is that obesity, or more prone to illnesses, more prone to heart problems. Then increase of if you're physically more active, then your body fat percentage of an individual is all like lesser. So I done all that correlation, and like it was very interesting to know that so many of people like all they did naturally was go through their normal physical act. Not many of them actually went out and actually thought of their fitness and did the exercises because they wanted to become fit. It's just that we do this normal exercise. We already do enough. We travel so much and train. I come out. We don't get time. We have to study and all that. So that's why and like recently there were so many articles which said that we increase the child obesity, especially the ones before their puberty. So many of them were actually obese from such low age. So that's why we creating an awareness about them that like you have to, even if you are born fat or whatever, there are cases which are people who are born fat. But if you work out, you realize the importance of physical activity. Like there is no way that you cannot become better. Like you cannot reduce these chances of so like you can prevent so many problems for your later life. You can just make your life much more better if you're physically active.
No, I mean, I feel obesity is probably one of the biggest problems, if not the biggest problem that we face as mankind. And people just aren't, let's say, so they just don't take it so seriously. But when we look at a range of diseases, let's say cancer or any of the viral diseases as well, one if not some of the most prominent things that these patients generally have is that they are obese or they are unfit in some way, shape, or form. And if I have to quote a thing from your piece, and I found this very interesting actually. So you said that over the past decades, burden of obesity has increased rapidly. In many parts of the world, it is epidemic. Obesity is most neglected through blatantly visible public health problems. So, and I was talking about this to another person as well, and I found this quote really powerful, in the sense that we do see it, but we kind of just take a blind eye to it, in a sense that, and people have made it a very social problem in that sense. So they point towards things such as body shaming is wrong, which it inherently is, and every body is made differently and to their own purpose. But my whole concept with body shaming is that if I don't as an individual tell someone that you aren't as physically fit as, say, another person, you won't feel okay. So if I say that someone is fat, then he or she will inherently feel bad about that comment and will go on to, let's say, more strenuous workouts, which will inherently make them fitter. As a result, lead them to healthier lives. But we live in a society where there's such a stigma on commenting anyone's physical attributes without going to a special person, like, let's say, a physiotherapist or a doctor, or someone like that. That it's so my whole question is that can you talk about obesity and what do you think about it as a problem, basically?
Like I just said, you get offended, but then nothing about it. So I think that there are many cases like people are trying and because because they have some anxiety that they just cannot be able to and that I respect. But an individual who is completely fit, especially if they are teenage and is just lazy and I think that diet also plays a very important role there.
Yeah.
Like exercises, but you control your diet, that is not going to give you very good results. Like I think the main focus here is awareness. The parents, the children are just want to realize, what is good for them, what is not. They'll be like, they are going to put their comfort zone. They also need some external push, to like to be motivated to become fitter. And even most of our parents, our grandparents, they are not very much well aware, about being physically fit and all. They are like, it's nothing, it's okay, it's fine. We have also never exercised. But that myth, that I feel that, a person should be told that, you are fat. At
Yeah.
least some way that the person, some, because nobody else is pushing them, maybe you could be the one who actually, is pushing that person to get into a healthier life. So I think that is really very important and in our society that accepts it. I wouldn't say that, you make fun of that because that kind of thing is really bad. But in a healthy manner, a person should be able to learn, should be able to accept that, that you are actually unhealthy.
No, that's very interesting when you talk about the whole parenting situation, and I totally agree with that. I feel that it's your job as parents to say that if you have a child who isn't having the best eating habits, maybe, or isn't working out, then you should be the ones who should be going to him or her and telling him that these are the right practices to take, because if you do these, then there are supported literature to say that you will not have diseases or you will not fall sick later on in your life. But the whole thing that I'm coming towards is, and how we as society has framed that is, that if someone, let's say a parent, goes on to tell their child that, okay, you're fat, you're not working out, you're not working hard as much, then people in society will point a finger, let's say, to the parent and say that, why are you doing that? Everyone is beautiful the way they are. Where I am actually, this may be a very controversial take. I don't think that is. In some way, yes, but through evolutionary biology, we've been structured in a way, we've been engineered in a way to admire some things and not admire some, and just in that case we admire athletic bodies, and that does lead to, let's say, having fewer diseases when it grows old. So that's the whole thing I'm talking about. I totally agree with the point that if you're a parent, then obviously you should take on these measures, but society also has to understand that you can't keep promoting these things just because you think that that's the right thing to do, if that makes sense.
I think that now because of social media, this society, what society
Yeah.
says, everything is just trending. There's today there's feminism, tomorrow there's this body shaming,
Mm,
everything. I think that what all of us as society also really need to stop giving it so much importance. Like it said that लोगों का काम है कहना, they will stop.
mm,
No matter how bad it is. So, like I understand, all of us need to individually take this responsibility and stop this thing. Like you see that if somebody doing it in front of you, and somebody actually correcting the parents, saying that why are you pushing them? Like really want what's best for their children. Maybe you don't talk in the
mm, yeah.
you're still taking the responsibility to this. Like right now, no matter what we say, but we are not going to be able to stop anything. So at least in our own circle, like whoever hears it, at least they can all individually, take this responsibility and make sure that they at least do something like this. So, even if people start today, it's going to reach out to 10, 100, and thousands. So that I think is really important. But just because of social media, I agree that the society thing has become a very big hype. But we really ourselves need to just stop it and ignore it, because I am sure like we know what is right and wrong, and society, they just come here to talk. They actually
Right.
when it comes to them, they don't actually apply it, or actually go don't really look into
Mm.
it to say how others will do it.
No,
So
I think, Twinkle ma'am, I think that's a great way to end. I think that if we leave the viewers with an understanding of why it's really important to have a healthy life, and, let's say, eat the right things in terms of nutrition and working out and taking, and, let's say, even going to specialists, let's say like a physiotherapist or a doctor, is very important to lead a healthy life. So I think that's a really good place to end. I mean, I would want this interview to go on for much longer, but I understand that we have limited times and we have to go back to our lives as well. So where can people find the work you're doing and the social medias that you may have? Feel free to connect.
So like they can add me on LinkedIn, and whatever questions they have, they can put up on that. Then I'll even send you my Twitter ID. I don't use it much, but I'm more active on LinkedIn than any other social media. So they can really connect with me on that. I'll be happy to answer and let them do whatever they want.
Thank you, Twinkle ma'am. I think I had a great time speaking to you. Maybe that when I'm in Mumbai or when you're in Delhi, we can maybe have a sit down conversation on some of the other topics as well. I had a great time speaking to you, ma'am. Thank you so much for connecting.
So much for having me on your show. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Really appreciate
Yeah.
for the fact that you do so much knowledge. Like I got your few podcasts. Like you have
Right.
many times. It really gives me a good. Really thank you for having me.
Thank you, ma'am. I think the more people we can have share their knowledge in different fields, I think is it's more better for society in that sense. And yeah, thank you. Thanks for the support as well. Thank you.